Hello again, everybody, and welcome to our second edition of Coffee and Broccoli. I am here, of course, with my coffee, my broccoli, and it's not a donut this week, but it's a cinnamon roll. Thank you, Father Dave, for acquiring those. What do you got, Father Dave?
I'm with a cup of tea, and actually I'm calling this amateur hour, not coffee and broccoli, because we are so professional. We spent hours with the makeup artist this morning trying to get ready for this. And I got to tell you, it didn't do much good, did it? But we tried. I brought along a friend today. You asked if I'd bring Sammy along. I will not. Sammy does not come out of home. This is Rufus. Rufus is my lap dog for today. Whenever I need comfort, I'm just going to pull him over. If you ask really hard questions or something that upsets me, I'll probably pull Rufus over with me. And I want you to know our session today is sponsored by Kirkland, Vitamin C. So we need to all have our vitamin C to stay healthy today. So they're helping us with our session today.
Please tell me they give us money for you to do that.
I didn't even think about asking them.
That's what sponsorship means. Is when
know
they...
that, but we don't do fundraisers here.
Oh, okay. So, I guess that makes a lot of sense. So we wanted to start with a question that was left over at the end of last week. We actually had a question: who is your favorite saint and why? You want to go first?
Sure. Saint Joseph, I've considered my patron saint for a long time. Joseph the worker, Joseph the the husband of Mary, the foster father of Jesus. Partly because he was a carpenter, and so I share some interest with that. Partly because I just admire him with the decisions he had to make, how firmly he was rooted in God in the midst of making some hard decisions, which probably would have fazed any of us. But instead, he just stood and walked the course straight ahead. So St. Joseph, pray for us.
Amen.
How about you, Father Hunt?
St. John the Apostle, the beloved one. I have here my ordination card, if you can see that. I'll hold it up to the camera. That's St. John and Mary, and it's an image from their home in Ephesus. And St. John the Apostle is my favorite. First off, a few years ago, somebody asked me, who are you named after? What does your name Hans come from? And for those who don't know, the Latin is Johannes, which in German is Hans, but in English it's John. So it's my name. And they're like, which John were you named after? And I was like, I don't know, I'm going to pray about this. And after a couple of days of prayer, I was like, John the Apostle. Really that image of being the beloved disciple of Jesus, the one who was there at the foot of the cross and had Jesus say to him, here's your mother, and Jesus gives his own mother to John, and realizing that as a priest, he does that for me as well, and says, here's your mother. And then again, that image of John with Mary in Ephesus, and the idea of he got to celebrate the Mass for her. And I don't know if you saw the image. It actually has, she's putting the stole on him. And it's such a beautiful image of like the church giving that authority to the priest so that the priest can then celebrate the sacraments for the church. And so John the Apostle, that's who I love, really, really turn to and want him to be a model for my life. And St. John, pray for us.
Amen. Good one. Oh, I like that story. Nicely done.
So we've got a ton of comments here. I'm going to start reading them off and letting Father Dave know what's happening. People are watching us.
We played with the possibility of having a moderator, but it seems for now it's a little more spontaneous and we just kind of goof our way through it like this. So that's what we're trying to do.
So Marlo Julian says, we're so happy you're staying, Father Dave, with 3 hearts. There's lots of hearts floating up on my screen. Sue Ann says, good morning. Kathy Mullen, hi from Texas.
Wow.
Miss you guys.
We really enjoyed last week. I think both Father Hans and I walked away from here really energized just by the kind of interaction that was happening, which we can't get with the video Mass. It just feels so static compared to some kind of interaction with this, even though it's still a little bit distant and contrived.
Laura Rule says, good morning. Good morning, Holy Trinity. So there's no questions yet, just people saying hi. Hey, we need questions, people. We're not just going to sit here. That's just boring. Ask us a question.
I'll bring you a couple of announcements as we're waiting for more questions to come in. The Hamiltons are celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary today. So that's Pat and Helen. Congratulations to them, and God bless you for many more years. I miss seeing people like them at our masses daily and weekends, just the energy of our Holy Trinity family when we come together. We also have a 7th birthday today for Goldie. So happy birthday, Goldie.
Happy birthday.
From your parish family.
And
Happy birthday to you.
Very happy anniversary to you, Pat and Helen. That's great. Let's see. Father Dave, my cats have joined me for this. This is from Jenny Ann. So
I liked it. We had a lot of people send pictures over watching Mass with the dog watching or their cat watching, which I thought was kind of cool. So when we get back to actually being in the church, you're all going to be welcome to bring your animals since they are now used to going to Mass with you. I might bring Rufus.
Aloha from the heart, Ohana. Here's a question from Nicole McCall. Have you watched any good movies lately?
Negatory. How about you, Father Hans?
Nope. I actually spent the last week on retreat, which I was planning on doing with the Brigittine monks down in Amity. And then, for obvious reasons, they closed their guest house. So I was retreating at home, but I've got a nice chapel down there. So rather than watching movies, I actually spent a lot of time in prayer and a little bit of time out walking. It was a very, very good week, but no movies. Michael Hintz comment, finally figured out how to watch a live video. Good job, Mike.
Hey,
Good.
Learning curve for all of us.
Yep. It took us a while to figure out how to do it. Libby sees the broccoli but wants to know what's the critter next to it. So I think you're going to need to reintroduce.
Libby, did you miss our opening? We already talked about Rufus. Rufus is the substitute here for Sammy because I'm not going to bring Sammy into this germ-laden place. This is Rufus.
Now, when you say germ-laden place, are you implying that we're all infected here already?
Probably.
What are you trying to say?
I don't know, but I don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk him.
No, Sammy's too important. The rest of us, apparently not as much.
Correct.
Okay, just checking.
That's called pecking order.
From Sasha Lamb, how has your routine been since quarantine?
Yeah, here's a good question. It's really been different. Here at the office, I've been doing my appointments, and it's been almost the same solid appointment schedule without any openings, but it's all via phone, which is not nearly as satisfying as sitting down face to face and actually talking with someone. It just gets tiring talking on the phone. We've done some video conference stuff, some stuff with Zoom, which at least allows us to keep the process going. We've got minimal staff coming in for obvious reasons. We've had some meetings that we felt needed to carry on among staff people, including our planning for the Holy Week and Easter liturgies. So we've had some time together, which I have to admit feels really normal and good. But other than that, it's just very, very different. Even walking back and forth to home, it just feels so different without the usual traffic going up and down Walker Road or even Parkway. How about you?
My routine, like I said, I was on retreat last week, so my routine hasn't fallen into a new routine yet, still getting used to it. A lot of it is just figuring out how to do online, content, meetings, meeting with people over the phone rather than in person. Here at the office, it has been kind of strange because even when there are people here, we're maintaining 6 feet of distance, which I was realizing yesterday there were 3 people out in the lobby and we had a triangle and the triangle was sort of like rotating around, maintaining, 6 feet of distance, but if you're trying to like go through a door that somebody else is standing in, you're like, can you move out of the way so that I can it's been kind of strange. And like Father Dave said, having some of that person-to-person contact in those meetings has been really nice and normal, but we're still sitting further apart than normal, and it is still a little odd.
We were meeting in the conference room with 4 of us, I think it was on Thursday morning of last week, and we were spread out in the 4 corners of the room, almost literally with the table right in the middle there. So amazing how quickly we learn these new ways of doing.
Susan Finch says, without donuts and pizza, what are you eating, Father Hans? So that's actually a reference to our youth group where I tend to show up after our last Mass on Sunday to our youth group and just eat all of the food because I haven't really eaten much on Sunday mornings usually. And then I show up with donuts and then they have pizza and I tend to eat a lot of donuts and pizza.
Little fact check here. Father Hans also does coffee and donuts before and after all 3 Masses that morning already. So to say he doesn't eat a lot.
That is not 100% true.
I don't know how to argue this one out here. I've seen it in action.
I will admit, on days when Father Dave has the 8 a.m. Mass, right when Mass is starting, I do go down and quality control the donuts just to make sure that they're okay.
Thank you on behalf of all of us.
So
it's a great service you offer.
On days when I have the 8 a.m. Mass, I don't eat nearly as many donuts.
Okay.
That's true.
All right, I take it back then.
I'm eating a lot of vegetables. I have my broccoli. For what it's worth, this actually is not the same broccoli as last week. The broccoli we had here last week, I ate that. So I'm getting my nutrition without the donuts and the pizza. From Anna DeBloy, Aiden wants to know why fish isn't considered meat on Friday.
I don't have an answer.
I have no idea.
What's the definition of meat?
I don't know.
Warm-blooded versus cold-blooded?
No, I'm pretty sure it's lives in the water versus doesn't live in the water.
So what else qualifies as fish? Obviously shrimp and lobster. That doesn't really count for Fridays.
I've had this question come up. What about alligators?
Wow. I don't know. Are they cold-blooded?
They're lizard family, so they'd be cold-blooded. But what about this? What about like mammals that live in the sea, like dolphins and whales?
Are they considered fish?
I don't think so. We don't know.
Yeah, good one, Aiden.
That's a good question.
Why don't you ask your teacher this week? Baffle them with your online learning. Do a paper on that. Do a 5-page paper. No, do it just a simple response and shoot it back to us. And next week on our coffee and Brussels sprouts or whatever it is, we will.
It's broccoli.
All right, coffee broccoli. We will give your answer to everyone. We'd love to have that.
Okay, I've got a complaint, Father Dave.
Oh, gosh.
For the guy who talks about coffee, like when you announce coffee and broccoli, you do it with such gusto, and you have no coffee, and you have no broccoli. I'm a little disappointed. You know, honestly,
this coronavirus is throwing all of us off. You know, I'm trying.
Okay,
some slack.
Okay, here's a question. Ava wants to hear your stories about when you knew God was calling you to priesthood. I'll go first on this one. I was reflecting on this earlier this week.
Good.
For most of my life, I did not know God was calling me to priesthood. I was born and raised Catholic, did all my sacraments at the usual time, never felt called to the priesthood, although my mom always said I was going to be a priest, and I always told her she was wrong. So turns out she was right. And I went off to college, got a degree in mechanical engineering, which I never used, came back home, didn't know what I was doing with my life. Eventually got connected with my church's youth group, just volunteering with that, and found out I enjoyed doing ministry. Got involved with a group called Reach Youth Ministry, traveling retreat teams. Did that for a couple of years. And throughout all of this, you know, I'm developing a prayer life. I'm a young, single guy doing ministry, and I was like, God, are you calling me to be a priest? Never felt called to be a priest. But I was praying about it and asking God. And so at the end of those 2 years, I got a job doing full-time youth ministry in the parish down in Grants Pass, St. Anne's in Grants Pass. If anybody's watching us from down there, hi. And I was working there for a couple of years. Still, you know, young, single guy, Catholic, prayer life, didn't feel called to be a priest until I was doing a couple of week-long retreats back-to-back as a chaperone. And at the beginning of one, we had this activity, which was kind of a getting to know you activity, and we would write down certain things about ourselves on a piece of paper and then walk around quietly reading what other people had written while they read what we had written. And one of the questions was, what's something you want from your life? And I actually wrote down to be a good Catholic husband and father because I thought that was what God was calling me to. 2 weeks later, at the end of, you know, 2 back-to-back retreats filled with prayer time, I just knew that I was going to be a priest. And this is June 2009. June 2009 is when God called me to be a priest. And somewhere within those 2 weeks, that call came. And part of how I know it came from God was because it wasn't something that I would have chosen for myself. I really did want to have that family life to have a wife and kids. And that was something that I really did long for. And priesthood wasn't something I would have chosen for myself. And another part was I had prayed about it. And the answer up to that point had been no. And then all of a sudden the answer was yes. And the third part was there was a great peace within my heart, even as I said to God, and I think I said this in my homily a couple weeks ago, God, this isn't really what I want, but if this is what you want for me, please place that desire within my heart. And again, as I said in the homily, over the next 6 months or so, I really did get that desire to be a priest. But it really was like within that 2-week period, God called me. And I was blessed. A lot of times you hear priests tell their stories and they're like, yeah, God was calling me, but I ran away from him for a few years, this, that, the other. For me, I was at a point in my life where I had that prayer life. I was doing that ministry, and I knew that the only correct answer to give to God was yes. And so I said yes, even though it wasn't what I wanted in the moment. And it's just been joyful ever since. And yeah, that's my story of how God called me to be a priest.
It's a great story, Father Hans. Thanks. I haven't heard all of that yet either, so I'm glad I got to hear it too. Amazing parallels between Father Hans and me on that one. I too had not thought about being a priest as I was growing up. My family was certainly a very practicing Catholic family, but other than going to Mass every Sunday without fail, we weren't involved in the church. We didn't do church stuff per se. So we never had a priest over to our house. I never felt particularly close or attracted to the priests that I knew growing up. I did take my faith seriously, and as a Catholic child even, learning how to say the prayers, doing that, I think I took that pretty seriously. I might have mentioned this once before too. When I started praying a rosary on a regular basis, I would dedicate a decade of the rosary for different people. And if it was just for one of my brothers or my sister, I didn't do it very carefully because I didn't really care about them. But if it was for my mom or my dad, then I'd pray very, very diligently and carefully. So just know that if I'm praying the rosary now and I'm praying it for the parish, I do take that seriously. Though occasionally I'll have one where I think, that's not fair. But I too had a bit of a reconversion experience when I was in college. My sister was going to a different church at that time and invited me to a youth rally. And it was through that I think I came to a more personal relationship and understanding of Jesus and how that fit in with the Catholic Church. I got involved in a prayer group in our home parish. We had a seminarian who was visiting the parish once a week as part of his, what would you call it, his field assignment? What's the word they use for that?
Summer assignment?
It was during the school year, so it was anyway, he was working with college students, specifically giving us a model and a pattern for how to put on retreats for our peers to help introduce them to a deeper relationship with Jesus within the Catholic Church. So there were probably 8 or 10 of us that he formed together as a team. We put on a whole bunch of these retreats. It was the scariest thing I ever did to get up, because we also had to announce in front of the parish that we were doing this and invite people and make personal calls to our friends from high school and say, would you be interested in coming on this retreat weekend? But through that, as Father Hans said, I too found that my heart was really in it. And it was a huge change in direction for me. I too had expected to be a dad and to have kids, growing up in a family that was really close and remains really close. That's just something I was yearning for and figured was part of my future. So the turning point for me, this seminarian from Mount Angel said, well, you need to come up to Mount Angel and visit. And I was very reluctant to do that. And he said he'd been praying for me, and he said, Dave, I think you need to consider becoming a priest. I really didn't want to hear that. I had no interest in hearing that. But I respected him a lot, and I did go to Mount Angel. And to be honest, I expected it to be cold and dreary with a big iron gate that would slam right after they get you in the gate, kind of a thing. The image I had never been up to Mount Angel for anything. And instead, what I found just interacting with the other students there was a whole group of individuals who were excited about their faith, excited about ministry, eager to share their own relationship with God, and studying stuff that was just plain exciting. Studying the Bible, studying saints, studying sacraments, studying what faith is all about. Even some of the philosophy stuff was just fascinating to put a structure around all of this stuff that I really didn't have much knowledge of it all. So that helped. The sense of a calling to priesthood was reinforced by many people as I got more active in the church there, my home parish. Started saying, Father Dave, do you think you could be a priest? And I had to start thinking about it because it was coming up more often. And so when I finally turned the corner and began the approach for the Archdiocese, it was a pretty smooth road from there. I had my doubts along the way, but here I am, 37 years as a priest, and very happy and so grateful for the life that I've been able to live as a priest.
Awesome. Okay, next question, and anticipated this one. Did you bring the cat piano today? Well, I guess I did. I have the cat piano right here. And we're going to see if Father Dave can guess these Lenten hymns.
You might need to help me. I wish you could enter in on this. This is a little scary.
Let's see if I can remember how to play this.
Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Nope, sorry. Oh, Sacred Head Surrounded.
Okay, good.
Okay, I'm going to try this one. I'm pretty sure I've forgotten it by now.
Meow, 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 meow.
I've heard it before.
Come on, it's the one everyone knows.
The Lord who throughout 40 days.
Yep, that's correct.
All right.
Good job.
Wow.
So next week I intend to come back with the cat piano, and I ask you guys to leave in the comments your favorite Lenten songs, and I'm going to attempt to play some of those. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to practice more for next week.
We were talking this week, if we have favorite Christmas songs, that comes to mind so readily. And to some extent, Easter songs, we know some of them right off, but favorite Lenten songs, we have a few contemporary that we sing regularly at Mass.
Yeah, it just doesn't spring to mind.
It's a different setting, isn't it?
From Rosemary Shaw, the Shaw kids want to know how many siblings you have and if they ever got on your nerves.
Go, Father Hahn.
I come from a family of 8 kids, and yes, we did in fact get on each other's nerves. Probably quite often. As I shared last week, when my mom got fed up with us, she just told us to go play in the backyard. So I imagine we got on her nerves as well. I'm not coming up with any specific stories of how we got on each other's nerves. I know that I probably got on my older brother's nerves. He was the one just older than me, and everything that he did, I wanted to do. And then I feel like as soon as I got good at it, then he didn't want to do it anymore. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got on his nerves pretty often.
What was the age span of your siblings?
So from oldest to youngest was about 17 years.
Oh, that's a big spread.
And it was pretty much, so 3 years between the oldest two, and then 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 3 years, 3 years. So pretty evenly spread throughout.
And where were you in the lineup?
I am the third born. People always ask me, where are you in your family? I was like, I'm number 1. I'm the best.
Yeah.
But they want to know what order we were born in. So I'm the third born.
I'm one of 5. I'm the middle of 5. I have an older sister, and then the rest of us are all brothers. We actually got along pretty well. I don't think we squabbled a lot. I think that was partly because we knew what would happen if we did squabble. So there was a fair amount of German discipline in our home, and I think we all wanted to please Mom and Dad and not get them mad at us. So I think for the most part, we played pretty well together. I'm sure there were exceptions, and I suspect I'll be seeing my folks tonight. I'll have to ask them, but I'm guessing their experience of that might have been different than my recollection of that.
Laura Rule, Father Hans, are you a huge pizza fan? I am, and Daniel is too. Yes, as a matter of fact, I love pizza. It's so good. Nina Steed says, Juliana says, thank you for making this available. I'm so happy you're staying, Father Dave.
Good to hear your voice, or hear your words at least. I wish I could see you in person.
Linda DeFalco, if I put a cracker or a piece of bread in front of my TV, can you bless it, or is that sacrilegious?
Just eat it.
Just
Just eat it, Linda.
Good morning. Please provide a blessing. Okay, so this is from Tiffany Hart. Please provide a blessing for our son Cody's 21st birthday on Friday, the 27th. So already happened. Go ahead. Cody.
Cody.
Cody's 21st birthday.
God bless you, Cody. May you continue to live your life fully and deeply and know Jesus every step of the way.
From Sue Ann Cognac, are you going to sing for us today? No.
No.
Maybe next week. Maybe.
Oh.
With the cat piano, of course.
There we go.
Will you continue having live stream masses if and when this coronavirus is over? Imagine attending mass in PJs. It's an interesting question. I think with what we've learned, we'd be able to do that reasonably easily, but it's just not the same. And I can see the value of doing it for people who are actually homebound, but for those of you who aren't homebound, come to mass.
Yeah, I know. It's a good question you're asking. Will we continue to do that? We've had people able to watch our masses that are not home for whatever reasons and still want to stay connected with the parish. So that's a good use. Some of the evangelical Protestant churches are way ahead of us on live streaming services, especially thinking that some of the younger generations are much more inclined to tune in that way than to actually go somewhere and participate directly. That's not been our Catholic style, so we've resisted that all along. But we need to see what ways we can use technology better as well. So we're learning. I can tell you, it's getting more natural. The first week we did the recorded mass, it felt really odd. I thought Father Hans did his part incredible. I thought he made it look like it was really easy, like you do it all the time. This was the third week that we did it when we recorded yesterday, and it kind of felt natural. It felt more natural for me, at least.
I think it's just experience doing it, because that first week, preaching to a camera is really strange, and now here we are just talking to the camera, but realizing that there are people who are listening to us, and I think that helps it feel natural.
And here it does, yeah.
And the repetition and getting used to it helps a lot.
I think both of us had the experience after doing the recorded mass. We're so used to doing our homily for 4 different sessions that Saturday night, I'm always tweaking it. I'm always making some changes in my mind, and literally I'll make some notes on my scratch sheet just to remember, I want to emphasize this, or this didn't work as well as I thought it would, so I'm going to omit this. But we don't get any do-overs anymore. So I want you to know those are unedited masses that we're doing. We're not patching in to cover up for mistakes or something like that.
Yep, for all you 5:30 mass goers out there, you guys are kind of guinea pigs. You get the first round of the homily, and then by Sunday morning, we're starting to, perfect it a little bit. But yeah, it really is. It's the first run, and that's just the first time, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, for both presiding at Mass and preaching, it's so different not having all of you out there. And pictures on the pews wouldn't do the same thing for me. But there's an energy that you bring, because it is a dialogue between the priest and the people. It's not who said before, you're not pew potatoes just watching us do the Mass. We're celebrating this together. And it feels much more like it's just me doing something when we're doing it in front of the camera that way. So I miss you. I miss this vibrant community, our musicians, all of the people who help make us what we are. Just even your full responses, you're quick to laugh, all of that. I miss very much the way we're doing it now.
Okay, here's a question for Rufus. Did Father Dave give you a treat?
He doesn't look very happy, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He's pretty low maintenance.
Josh Richardson is trying to make me angry. He says, rumor has it Father Hans is a Yankees fan. Is that true? No, not the Yankees. Phyllis Steele, a blessing to the volunteers at Food Closet. Miss not being able to help. Yeah, amen to that.
They've done a great job of keeping our service open with a lot of clients coming, meeting the cars out in the parking lot, maintaining safe distance, using gloves. Very, very impressive.
Where is Deacon Bret? That's a question on here.
It's only 11:15. My guess is he's still in bed.
That seems reasonable.
I don't know otherwise.
I don't know why not.
And from what I know of Deacon Bret, he's not watching this. He's got better things to do.
Oh, nice. From Eileen O'Brien, Father Dave, we're so glad you're staying. Where will you be going after the next year?
I have no idea. That's up to the whole placement process. So I explained a little of that last week. I think that this is part of what we signed up for when we become priests, but we're not in charge of where we go.
From Helen Hamilton, thank you for the blessing. From Helen and Pat, that's great.
Very welcome.
Father Dave and Father Hans, for those of us with Skype, FaceTime, or other live face-to-face communications, you could see us. We actually were contemplating trying to do this over Zoom, but there's some limits on the number of people who can be involved. And we decided to go with just live streaming with Facebook because there's no limits on the number of people who can tune in and listen to us. So that was something that we considered, and this is what we ended up doing. Hi from Rochester, New Hampshire, from Sharon Stewart.
Oh my. Hi back from Beaverton, Oregon.
Kathy Mullen, you're doing a great job during these trying times, getting more from you than from my local parish. We're working at it. We're trying.
We're learning as we go.
Mike Hintz has a good idea. If we each had a 6-foot pole strapped to our chest, it would be easier to maintain the 6-foot distance.
Ooh. Kind of like a good thought, Mike. I'm thinking kind of like a unicorn, but coming out of the center here. 6 feet out.
From Canado about fish. Remember, the apostles were fishermen, and they ended up having leadership positions in the church.
Oh,
that could be it.
Such wisdom, Ken. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a timestamp on the comments there?
There isn't. I have no idea how far behind I am.
I was wondering if you're...
Although I'm hearing some responses in the comments to things that I just read, so I think I'm close to the end.
Good.
From Francis Therapeau. My God, where are you? Why have you abandoned us? If someone wants that, how would you respond to that? First context, that is, my God, why have you abandoned me, is opening lines of the 22nd Psalm, and it's actually quoted by Jesus when he's on the cross. So how would you respond, especially in these times, if somebody says that?
No, I certainly can feel for especially those who are in huge distress right now with jobs or emotional issues or being sick or caring for the sick on the front line. I'm sure it feels very, very dire. We know in our faith, we don't always see it, but we know in our faith that God is very present in difficult times, more present than in the times that we tend not to acknowledge him at all. But we certainly need faith to believe that, to hold on to that, and to not give in to doubt or despair.
I would actually encourage reading the entirety of the 22nd Psalm, because while that is the first line, it goes on to become very hopeful by the end. Trying to think, it's not coming to mind, but the overall tone of the psalm is one of, even in this, and as Father Dave said in his homily, what was the line? Though this should fail, though that should fail.
Even
if this all fails, yet will I praise my God. And that really is the tone of the 22nd Psalm, is even in this feeling like God might be abandoning us in these trying times, yet will I praise my God. And with that, a recognition that God is here with us.
And I think that's a discipline to hold on to. I don't think that comes naturally, even if we have strong faith. I think we have to remind ourselves. I'm not surprised, but what Jesus quoting that psalm in his worst moments wasn't reminding himself also that even if this looks awful and hopeless and like utter failure, yet will I believe in God, and yet will I trust that God is doing something in the midst of this.
This is from a mom talking about our moms. She says, moms are always right. Yep.
I won't argue with that one.
A shout out to Al and his crew for their hard work making a huge difference in our community.
Yes.
Absolutely. They're doing wonderful work there.
Thank you, Al and crew. And all of you for bringing the food in for it and the supplies.
From Shane and Tiffany Hart. Why is Father Dave always subjected to leaving us every year? We can't imagine Mass without you, Father Dave. From Vicky Morseth. Father Hans, did you ever apologize to your mom? For what?
Yeah, he was the perfect child.
I apologize to my mom somewhat regularly, but for not believing her that I was going to be a priest, I don't think I ever apologized to her for that. I told her she was right. I don't think I ever apologized. Mark Gerard joining from Iowa.
Wow. Hi, Mark.
Nice.
Mark is my cousin.
That's awesome.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for tuning in.
The universality of your message knows not the limits of many miles. That's great. Thanks for sharing your stories. How does one reply to someone who says this? This is God's doing, referring to the coronavirus.
Yeah. Well, God doesn't do evil. We know that. God brings good out of evil. That's very different than saying God does evil. So I have a hard time when people would say God is doing something for his purposes. I do believe God is bringing good out of this, and I believe there's a lot that we can learn from this time that's very different than saying God is inflicting this plague upon us as his punishment or as his wake-up call for us. How would you answer that, Father Hans? Because that does come up a lot.
It does. It really does come up a lot. And I think it goes back to that fundamental question of like, why is there bad things in this world in general? And it really is, God allows that. He doesn't do it. He doesn't choose to have bad things happen to us, but he does allow it. And just recognizing the good that God can bring out of bad situations, and that God always takes everything and turns it to a greater good sooner or later, often not in the time frame that we would like, but trusting in that. But certainly no, it's God doesn't do things to punish us. This isn't a punishment. This isn't God, being angry with us. He allowed it to happen, but I trust certainly that God will work this for his greater glory.
I too.
Is the box of palm branches out at the church? So
It will be out tomorrow. So I think we kind of misled you a little bit with our announcements at the end of Mass, and I will have severe words for Deacon Bret about that. We'll have them out tomorrow. I blessed them today, so they're all blessed and ready to go, but we've got a box that we're going to put them in our display, and the paint on that was still wet, so I couldn't bring it in yet today. So tomorrow it'll be there.
Cynthia is laughing. I don't know when that was or what, but she's laughing.
Keep laughing. We need laughter, people.
Probably related to the cat piano, because there's other comments. Father Hans, you are great on the cat piano. Laughing. So we are clearly way behind.
We're way behind, yeah.
From Betty, we do not need the cat piano in choir, Father Hans. Sorry. Okay, I will not play the cat piano for the choir. We're getting, here's some requests for specific songs. How are your parents now? That's from Sasha Lamb.
They're all right. My siblings and I each take one day where we go to visit, and we made the decision even during the coronavirus with their input that we're going to continue those just because it's an important part of their day, and we enjoyed the time with them. So they're hanging in there. Thanks for the prayers. Thanks for the concern.
So my mom, I'm hoping she's eternally blessed right now. She actually passed away it's coming up on 3 years this year. So I really, really hope she's in heaven, super, super happy and not having to worry about anything that's going on down here other than, worrying about us, as she obviously probably does. My dad is doing well. He's in Salem, still living in the same house I grew up in. So it's nice to get down there and visit him. I was actually hoping to go down there and visit today, but with all the social distancing, don't travel, don't interact with people, I'm gonna wait on that for at least a couple weeks. I'm still hoping to maybe get down there for Easter. Laura Rule says, I am very blessed that during the shelter at home, my boys love each other and keep each other company.
Yeah, good.
Father Hans, what's your favorite pizza place nearby? I don't ever go out for pizza. I just eat pizza that people have at events. Quite often it's Costco. Sometimes it's Little Caesars. I'm not a fancy pizza sort of guy. I just want quantity.
Yeah, good. Love it.
Oh boy. Good morning from the Staron family. How do you pronounce that?
Right.
Is it Staron? Staron? Am I getting it right?
Yeah, good to see you all. Good to hear from you all.
Maryhill residents would love to watch your mass. That's from Rita Marie Trueworthy. Oh, more questions about pizza. What is your opinion of pineapple on pizza? It doesn't add anything to it, but it's not terrible. Okay. Yep, it would be nice for the homebound to continue to live stream the actual Sunday services. Maybe we'll do that. A suggestion from Jeff Seckley. Maybe you should dress the camera up as a person to make it easier.
Yeah. Good idea.
Terrible. Oh, here's a good one. This is from Ken Canedo. People ask me this all the time, but it would be good to hear your perspectives. Why are the Stations of the Cross at Holy Trinity different from the stations in older churches?
Good.
So the Stations of the Cross that we have at Holy Trinity are actually taken from a set of stations sort of created by John Paul II in 1993, I believe he did it. And they are more biblical. They actually follow the biblical story of Jesus from the time that he was, I think it starts in the garden, with his agony in the garden, to his crucifixion, death, and burial. And so the stations that we have in our church depict and follow those biblical stories. The traditional Stations of the Cross, some of those stories aren't actually found in the Bible. Like, I don't think, well, the three falls, Jesus falls the first time, the second time, the third time, it's not laid out like that in the Bible. And so those traditional stations, I don't actually know the history of
It
where
goes
those
back
came
now.
from.
Alphonsus Liguori is the earliest set that I know of, and I don't even know what year he was in. So
He's more recent. I'm sure it goes back well before
Does it?
that. But they're much older and much more traditional. But the ones that we have here at Holy Trinity are biblical, and they were done by Pope John Paul II.
we've talked often that we'd like to, because we have enough grounds with our property here, to set up a walking Stations of the Cross during one set or the other. I don't know which one it would be, but we're hoping that one of our scout projects for their Eagle will be to create a set of stations for us so you can walk a pathway around the perimeter of our property and have the 14 stations along the way.
From Nicole McCall, do priests have rules they have to follow for homilies? And is there, quote, homily training for priests?
Well, as you can tell by the way we preach, there's no training. We actually had quite a bit of homiletic stuff in the seminary.
We did too.
We had quite a bit of training on that. And are there rules? Yeah. We're obviously presenting the message of Jesus Christ, the good news of the gospel. We're not bound to use strictly the readings from the Mass. We can use any part of the liturgy, so it can include the liturgical setting, the prayers that we have at Mass, the Eucharistic prayers. We're using a homily series during this Lent. We just finished it up yesterday. So there's a lot of license to do that. What kind of parameters would you put around that?
I think that's a good way of putting it. Like, normally we would use the readings from the Mass, but especially during like the seasons of Advent, Christmas, Lent, Easter, there's a lot more like focus on what the season is and what the season's about. And the readings generally go along with that, but there is this intent to like look at what happened in Jesus's life at this time, and then what is the message of that for us in our lives at this time. We had a lot of homiletic practice. So when I was in seminary, for 2 years, we'd do regularly about once a month or so, maybe even once every 2 weeks. We'd break down into like groups of 4 seminarians, and then we would each give a practice homily on the same readings. We were given the same readings, and it was interesting to see how each of us went in different directions. And then we would give each other feedback on how you did, what you might have done better, what you might have done differently. And one of the things that I really learned from that practice is that every priest has his own distinctive style, and it doesn't work well to try to like copy somebody else's style. You've got to be yourself. but there are ways to be yourself that are better, and you can work on being better at your presentation.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're aware either, but here at Holy Trinity, one of the things that we do very regularly, Tuesdays we do a debrief of the weekend, and there's 5 of us that meet together for that, and we specifically do a full critique of the homily, regardless of who gave it, and we're pretty, ruthless isn't the right word, but we're pretty direct about,
We're honest.
about
We're
what
honest.
works and what doesn't work, and what came through, or this confused me, or I thought this image didn't work very well, or I really liked the way this came across. Wasn't real clear on what your point was with that, or I thought this was a distraction. So then we do some planning together on Thursdays for the upcoming weekend. So,
And with that feedback, like, we know that it's constructive criticism meant to improve the quality of homilies that are coming up. And it's really helpful to do that in a setting where we trust each other like that and are able to give honest feedback and say, hey, maybe you could try this next time. So we do put effort into that.
with the recorded masses, we've been able to literally watch back the video too, which I haven't done since seminary days. And that's a whole different level of critiquing how it comes across. So.
It really is interesting to see myself on video and critique myself on video.
Yeah.
Not necessarily good, interesting either. It's interesting. Oh, here's a helpful comment from Michael Broussard. Costco in Hillsborough has TP today. So if you don't have any, apparently Costco in Hillsborough is your place. Rachel Lavax. With the current mandates of social distancing, do we run the risk of dehumanizing each other? In essence, turning into a body which may be a carrier of disease. I think of saints like Saint Damien Molokai, I assume. It won't let me see the rest of that. There it is. Saint Damien of Molokai, who knew the other was sick but still kept close proximity. Do we run the risk of dehumanizing?
Yeah, Rachel, it's a good question, and it's sure hard. Obviously, for those who have health issues, it's just so critical, and we're all trying to do our part with this. We all need to do our part with this. Does it dehumanize? Yeah, or certainly nothing else, it forces us to look at other ways of connecting more closely that we can't do physically.
It really does have negative impact on our relationships because we're not able to interact like we normally would and should. I'm glad you brought up St. Damien of Molokai because I was actually reflecting on this. St. Damien went to the leper colony and simply lived there. And one of the things about that means there was no possibility of him infecting anybody who wasn't already infected. And for me, that's a huge part of what we're doing with social distancing is making sure we're not infecting people who aren't already infected. And if I could be guaranteed that I wasn't going to infect anybody, I would absolutely go and minister to people who were infected, not worrying about the risk to myself. But that's something that I can't guarantee, and so it makes it difficult.
It's a good question.
How does drive-through confession work with 3 of us in the car? I think you experienced that yesterday.
I had a family of 5 come in yesterday. So they emailed in ahead of time and said, how is this going to work? And I suggested they just stop a little bit before the chair and get out and come one at a time and do their 6 feet away from me, which is what they did. So it had a number of people where was more than one in the vehicle, and obviously they don't want to be listening, or if they choose not to be listening in on each other's confession. One would need to either get out of the car while the other's confessing or somehow do it privately. It seemed to work pretty smoothly.
I scrolled down in the comments just now, and I now know who that was because they said we went with the family of 5 yesterday. We walked out to where the car would stop, and the others stayed in the car with music on a little ways back. So it's helpful for those who are in the car, to have music on and not be listening in.
What was really unfair, the weekend before Father Hans did it outside, and it was 64 degrees and sunny and just a balmy spring day. So I was out there, and it was 49 degrees, it was rainy and windy, and I was bundled up to the kazoo, and I'm the old priest. So life isn't fair. But did I complain? Well, I guess I did.
A little bit, actually.
I guess I did.
He definitely came to me afterwards and was like, this wasn't fair. And he literally just complained right now.
I guess I did. I'm sorry.
Father Dave, is Deacon Bret going with you when you leave the parish?
Thank goodness, no. He's part of the staff here at the parish. He didn't come with me when I came here, and he's not going with me when I leave.
The SSMOs are impressed with our efforts. From Cynthia, so Pauls will be outside church doors all week for us. Yes.
Correct.
Starting tomorrow, they will be outside the front doors of the church. From Laura Welling, hi, can you please get more details about what a weekend retreat is like at Mount Angel Abbey? Thanks. My short answer to that is ask Mount Angel Abbey. I haven't done one of those retreats.
And they have a lot of different kinds, so it depends who's sponsoring the retreat and what they're offering. So they don't just have one size fits all. So there could be a women's retreat, there could be they have the business people's retreat up there.
Yeah.
So various groupings like that, depending on who the retreat master is, the person who's leading the retreat. Sometimes it's just a silent retreat. I believe at Mount Angel, I'm not sure they're even open now. I think the whole hilltop is closed off right now.
I don't think their guest house is open.
They're not.
I'm almost certain.
I did get a notice of that yesterday. They are not. But you can almost always just make a silent retreat at a place like that and then join with the monks for Mass and for their prayer times as well.
And for those of you who haven't been on the hilltop up there, it is an absolutely perfect place to do a retreat because it is isolated and it's a monastery and it's a place of prayer. And most of the people on the hilltop, while they're cheerful, they'll smile at you, they'll say hi and have a conversation if you want to. They'll also recognize that a lot of people simply come up there to pray and are looking for silence. And it's peaceful, it's separated, it's got a great view of the surrounding area. You can see 4 mountains from up there on a clear day. It's a wonderful place to do a retreat. Mm-hmm. Beatrice wants to know, what's the name of your stuffy on the table?
Rufus.
Oh, from Margarita de Leon. Can you do next week's Mass at the altar so it feels like we are actually in church? We actually considered where we wanted to do this, and for those of you who don't recognize it, we're at the altar in our side chapel, what on Sunday is normally the
family room.
Yeah. And we chose to do it in there because it's a little bit more of an intimate setting with fewer of us actually present. And also because it's easier to get, the presider's chair, the ambo, everything in one frame for the camera. Works better for camera angles, for sound. We thought about doing it at the main altar, but opted for the chapel for some of those reasons.
I think the acoustics are a little easier for us for the recording in the chapel as well. But there's pros and cons. We know that. We've been talking about how to do Holy Thursday and Good Friday, and we'll probably do that in the chapel also for the same reasons. It's just hard to have that great big space and to have no one in there. So my guess is we'll continue to do what we're doing.
From Sasha Lamb, how do your parents address you? This is a fun question. My mom lived, like I said, she died it's coming up on 3 years now, but she lived for exactly 40 days after my ordination.
Oh my.
And I'm sure she called me Father Hans at some point in there, but that didn't last long at all. My dad just calls me Hans. When I was growing up, my mom would usually run through a list of my siblings' names before coming up with mine. I don't know if that happened for you, but that's pretty common in a large family. Is you just start rattling off names until you get to the one you want.
I have never been called Father Dave by my family. I need to be reminded that is not it's not my role in the family. So.
The Blair family in Gilbert, Arizona says hello.
Wow.
Al says thank you to all of those who are supporting the food closet. This is from Kathy. So that's awesome.
Thanks.
Let's see. Thanks, Al. We appreciate you also. Scrolling through some blessings. This is from Jeff Zeckley. Birthday blessings to our oldest daughter, Amanda, turning 25 today. God bless you, Amanda. That's awesome.
Hi, man. I remember when you were still in our school over here.
From Tony Lucarelli, can you explain the drive-through confession process? It's just like confession, only you drive through. No, it really is. Father Dave or I has been setting up a chair over in front of the entrance to the school, so really easy to see from the main doors of the church, right next to the curb. People just basically get in a line in their cars and drive up, open their window. We do confession. Person sitting in the car, we're sitting on the curb, 6 feet of distance maintained the whole time. And it works pretty well.
Seems to be all right. We could probably make something similar happen in the church, maintaining this space. We're trying to avoid having to touch doorknobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of that decision was based on, people touching things that have the person before them touching the same thing, and for just trying to avoid that. Oh, from Carlos Romo, you might have explained earlier, but what changed that you will be with us another year? You want to run over that quickly again?
Yeah, I did it briefly at Mass, and then just so you all know too, we're doing a Wednesday update each week. So we're sending on our website. So there's a Wednesday update and then the weekend update. The weekend update overlaps with the bulletin, the way it's posted as well. At the end of Mass yesterday, I mentioned briefly, just in light of all of the uncertainties that have evolved with this coronavirus, it feels like I would be abandoning ship if I were to leave this coming summer. So I called the Archdiocese and just said, I'm concerned about that. It doesn't feel like the right thing to do. When the process began for my moving, it was before any of the coronavirus was talked about at all. There were no restrictions in place, no talk about restrictions. And now we've seen that there's so much disruption and it's likely going to continue for a while. So there's going to be quite a process of going through this and then rebuilding after that. And I want to be here with you through that period of time. So that's why I'm still here.
This is from Elijah Shaw. Actually, Oliver's the one asking the question. Elijah's wondering what your social media presence was before all this. Have you ever had to do an online mass before? I had Facebook before all this, but I had not gotten on it in 2 or 3 years, maybe more. I had no online social media presence at all, really.
Same here, Elijah. Yeah, I also have a Facebook account, but it's only because I go over Cornelius Pass once a week, and there's a group that uses that for road reports in the winter. But I've not done any chatting back and forth on Facebook. So that's brand new. I've never recorded a mass before.
From Cynthia, walking stations would be great. Maybe if we could have something where people could do that.
Yeah.
From Laura Roll, will there be a streamed Stations of the Cross? Laura, we're actually working on putting together a video recording of the Stations of the Cross, so hopefully we'll have that available by this coming Friday. Hopefully, yeah, we're going to get that put together this week, so it will be up on our webpage and available.
And we'll have something on Good Friday too, I'm sure. We've always done a large gathering of stations on Good Friday. The Archbishop in his memo said that they're streaming one on the Archdiocesan website, Stations of the Cross.
Okay.
So that would be available for you also. It's archdpdx.org.
From Libby, our Stations of the Cross, ours end with the resurrected Lord, something Pope John Paul II felt was very important. One of the things that I think we actually do with that, Libby, is during Lent, we only do the 14, but then outside of Lent, and especially in Easter, we add that 15th Station of the Resurrection, and it is a beautiful way to realize that this isn't the end. And part of that is, like, celebrating Lent, we kind of act like it ends with Jesus' death, even though we know that the resurrection is coming. And then the rest of the year, we're like, yes, this ends with the resurrection. From Rebecca Garland, when is the county tearing out the office widening Walker?
Yeah.
Any updates on that?
Yeah, we're actually waiting for the next update on that. So we're sitting in my office doing this, and right about where Father Hans is, he would now be out of the office, but that wall to his left, which you can't see, probably would still stay here. So obviously the building is horribly compromised. We don't know the exact when on that. I'm guessing we've got 2 to 4 years. I don't know if coronavirus is slowing down their construction or not.
Sasha says that Father Hans' homily gets better and better every day. Thank you, Sasha. So I think we're coming up on the end of our hour.
we are.
It does look that way.
Yeah.
There's a ton more comments. I assume more questions. We're going to look over those and hopefully be able to answer some of those at the start of our coffee and broccoli next week. Thank you all for joining us. It's been wonderful seeing you, or at least having you guys see us and being able to talk to you and interact this way. Really do enjoy this.
Why don't we close with the Our Father like we did last time and a quick blessing, right?
Sounds good.
Our Father,
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
the Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. God bless you all.